Welcome to SuperTalk, the podcast that scratches your superhero itch. Just two suburban dads nerding out over superhero stuff on the small screen and the big. Buckle up, people. Enjoy the ride. In 3.
Welcome to SuperTalk, the weekly podcast dedicated to news and reviews of comic book media on the big and small screen. This is episode 103. I'm your host, Brian Professor Pettis, and with me, as always, is my illustrious co-host, Titanium Tony Estrella. Titanium!
Is it episode 103 or is it episode 104?
I think it's 103.
All right. I changed it to 104 because I thought it was 104.
I think it's 103.
I think it's 103 too.
103, yeah. It's been a couple weeks since we had an episode. This is, we talked about this when we did our 100th episode. We have regularly tried to come and do an episode every week, and we will continue to try to do that. But there are these times of the year where it's just a massive lull. There's no new content to review. There's no new movies, no new television shows out, no episodes to discuss. And a lot of the news that comes out during the week is very redundant, and it's a lot of theory crafting. Yeah. There's not like really big reports.
Agreed.
And the
rumors aren't really worth mentioning at that point.
Right. So what we're doing is we're giving ourselves a little bit of time to kind of gather all the relevant news before we have an episode. Now, we wanted to get together this week because we're going to do our preview this week of the Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania movie, which comes out this week. Later this week, at the end of this week, you and I are going to see that on Thursday night. So we will see it as soon as it's available, which is Thursday evening. We'll probably do a little quick kind of first impressions video that we'll release to our YouTube page. And we'll do that evening, and then we'll have a full review episode after the weekend, maybe Sunday night or Monday.
Yeah, and we'll include the Flash trailer that's going to be released today as well.
Yes, it is Super Bowl Sunday today as we're recording this episode. And we are expecting, which we'll talk about today, a number of trailers and commercials during the Super Bowl in regards to comic book media. We'll discuss what we think we're going to see today, and we'll do some reviews of that next week as well. So, but today we're kind of going to do a little preview of the movie, of the Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania movie, and cover some news. And there's been a lot of news, and some of it pretty worthwhile discussing. So let's jump into the show.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thanks to our patrons. These are the listeners that bring the show to you. Patreon.com/SuperTalk is how you become a member of the patron. Patreon.com/SuperTalk. It's $1 every time we have an episode, and then you're supporting the show directly and help us give back to our listening audience as well. So Patreon.com/SuperTalk is how you become a member. All right, let's jump right into the news this week. I mentioned this to you yesterday, something that you had heard. We got our last episode. We covered James Gunn's big reorganization Phase 1 announcement of the new DC Universe.
He calls them Chapter
1 of the new DC Universe, and all the Chapter 1 projects that he had released. 5 movies, 5 series on HBO Max. And one of those movies that he mentioned was Batman and the Brave and the Bold. This is going to be the first Batman movie in the new DC Universe franchise.
Not connected to Matt Reeves.
Right. Elseworlds. Yeah, he mentioned that everything that Matt Reeves is doing, and Todd Phillips on the Joker side, and Teen Titans Go, and a bunch of other things. The things that aren't connected to the DC Universe are going to be called Elseworlds projects. But this movie is tied to the DC Universe, Batman Brave and the Bold. He mentioned in his video that this is going to feature Damian Wayne as Robin, which is Batman's son. And for those of you who aren't familiar with Damian Wayne and haven't seen Damian Wayne, DC has done a ton of animated movies featuring Damian Wayne, both as part of the Teen Titans and as part of the Batman family.
Yeah, Damian Wayne basically is his son, raised by Ra's al Ghul, a bunch of assassins, raised to be an assassin.
Raised in the League of Assassins.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then finds his way back to his true father, Batman. And as you can imagine, has some emotional issues and some other issues about killing people.
But is a child assassin.
Yes.
Trained as an assassin and is a raging a-hole.
Yes.
But that makes the character very compelling. But so James Gunn's very excited about featuring this version of Robin in the DC universe. Obviously, no casting announcements in regards to that yet. However, a humongous rumor dropped the last couple days that Christian Bale will be returning as Batman for the Brave and the Bold movie, and Damian Wayne will be his son, and Robin, and it will feature the entire Bat family, which is another thing that James Gunn mentioned, that this Brave and the Bold movie is going to be a Bat family movie.
Yeah.
Thus far, in all of the Batman movies we've seen, there's only been one movie, maybe a couple, that featured somebody other than Batman, right? We had Batman and Robin, which featured Batgirl, as well as Robin in that movie. Well, probably the worst Batman movie ever made, the one with George Clooney.
Yeah.
But nothing in the Christian Bale version of Batman movies featuring somebody else from the Bat family. They alluded to it in the final chapter there, which was Dark Knight Rises. They alluded to, if you remember, they had Joseph Gordon-Levitt was kind of playing a character that was an orphan that knew Bruce Wayne was Batman, and Bruce Wayne was kind of trying to convince him to, that he could also be Batman. Batman's just it's a mask. It's a name. It's not a person, right?
Right.
And at the end of that movie, you see that he had given him access to the Batcave,
Right.
And then we find out that his real name was Robin. His given name was Robin. That was another thing they teased at the end of that movie. But again, that whole Christopher Nolan run ended. And Christian Bale said that he was open to coming back and playing Batman again in a fourth movie, but he was only going to do it if Christopher Nolan was in. Well, what ended up happening is Christopher Nolan left the franchise, went off and did some other things. He did Inception and some other movies. But he left, and so Christian Bale, ended his run as Batman. Well, now the rumor is he's coming back.
Yeah.
I know you have some thoughts about this.
Yeah,
but
people are terrified that it's going to be Clooney that's coming back, but we do hear that there is a previous Batman that played the part will be coming back, and we're not talking Michael Keaton. We know Michael Keaton's in it, but
there's only I guess at this point,
Val Kilmer.
There's 6 people that have played Batman in major motion pictures, right? Mm-hmm. We have Michael Keaton.
Yep.
We have Val Kilmer.
Yep.
We have George Clooney.
Yep.
We have Christian Bale, and now we have and Ben Affleck and Robert Pattinson. Yep. Those are the people that have played Batman. We know that Robert Pattinson's version is going to be on its own. It's going to be its Elseworlds, and that's not going to be brought into the DC universe.
It's not changing.
We know Ben Affleck is done. He has said as much. James Gunn has said as much. The rumors are that Ben Affleck will come back to direct a movie for DC. We're not sure which one yet, but he has been potentially linked to this project as a director.
He's in talks with James about that, yeah.
Yeah. So that leaves... and Michael Keaton is way too old to come back as Batman, right?
Yeah.
We know that, again, he's going to be featured to some extent in the Flash movie. We'll find out how much and why and where. But that leaves 3 other actors. Val Kilmer can't talk.
Right.
He has no voice, and this is going to be somebody playing this character for an extended period of time, so that pretty much sets him out. George Clooney, a little older than Christian Bale, and he, to this day, regrets playing that role, and he says he doesn't regret taking on the role, but the way that movie came off was very... it came off very bad. It wasn't
for his career, yeah,
and it wasn't well accepted by the comic book community. I mean, the costume had nipples on it. I mean, come on, right? Yeah. So, it was just not good. So I don't think he's coming back. So that just means Christian Bale. Now you mentioned Christian Bale's older, right?
He's an older guy, yeah.
He's late 40s.
And I know James Gunn wants to start a younger version of these
Superman.
Characters. It's going to be in his 25s, 25, 24, something around these. He's going to be in his 20s.
But if you're going to have Damian Wayne as Robin, you do need to have an older Batman. You need to have a Batman that's old enough to...
In his 40s? Or in his 50s?
Well, Damian Wayne's... Let's say Damian Wayne's 12 years old.
Right?
I mean...
I think he's going to be younger than that, but...
Let's say he's maybe...
10
years old.
Yeah.
I mean... Batman would have had to be Batman for at least a number of years before this whole scenario of this relationship with Talia al Ghul comes about, where he has this relationship and they have a son out of wedlock that he knows nothing about. So you would think at least mid to late 30s, right? So I think what they might be doing is kind of making the Christopher Nolan version of Batman and the Christopher Nolan movies canon to the DC universe. This is what they may be doing.
Okay. And
here's what's exciting about this. They've laid the groundwork for this in those movies. Again, I mentioned Joseph Gordon-Levitt playing a potential version of Robin in that movie, and what they can do is now say it's been 10 years since that movie came out. Maybe now he comes back as Nightwing.
Interesting.
So maybe he had played the Robin character for some time, or was, kind of the sidekick to the Christian Bale version of Batman. And maybe now he's Nightwing. And he would be a great Nightwing.
Yeah,
that would be fantastic.
Yeah.
And then you have, we know that he had a relationship with Talia al Ghul in that movie. In The Dark Knight Returns, or Dark Knight Rises, he had we found out, obviously, at the end of the movie, that the woman that he had a relationship with ended up being Talia al Ghul, was Ra's al Ghul's daughter. And he didn't know it. But, again, at the end of that movie...
Did she die in that movie?
We thought she did. She was in a truck that kind of fell down. Remember the truck that was carrying the nuclear bomb? Right. It kind of went down off an overpass and crashed, and she was sitting in there, and you thought she died? But did she really?
Right. Yeah.
And obviously you have the whole concept of the Lazarus Pit, and that the League of Shadows has access to that, and maybe she comes back that way, and all this. Who knows? But was she pregnant? Did she have a son? And maybe we find that out, and all this other stuff. So there's groundwork laid for this, and I'm not again. This has not been confirmed by James Gunn, and one of the reasons why this rumor has legs is because anytime somebody's come out recently and said something about the DC universe or one of the projects, James Gunn has refuted rumors immediately.
Right.
Like he'll come out on Twitter and says, some of what you heard is true, some of what you heard isn't true. Or he said, no, that's absolutely not the case.
That's not what we're doing,
But he hasn't said anything about this.
That's true, yeah.
So
and it's being leaked by pretty reliable sources.
Right.
So not just SuperTalk podcast.
I know, and again, casting of a role like Batman is humongous, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
But I believe wholeheartedly most of the comic book fans out there, comic book media fans out there, loved the Christopher Nolan movies, adored Christian Bale as Batman, thought it was probably the best series of movies ever made.
He's my favorite Batman for sure.
He played the role very well.
Yeah.
So him coming back, I think would be a big win for DC.
I think so too. Yeah,
and
I like it.
To your point, I mean, I think the biggest concern or question is, well, if the rest of the DC Justice League characters are going to skew younger, right? Let's say Superman's younger, they may cast a younger Wonder Woman, a younger Green Lantern, or whatever it might be. Is that going to have an older Batman? Is that going to... I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see.
As a leader, you don't mind him being a little bit older, a little bit wiser. I just, somebody in their 40s and 50s, I think, is going backwards for what they want to do in, 10 years. What's Christian Bale going to be like in 10 years? Great actor. It would be a huge get, and I'd love to see it. But that'll be interesting to see how it plays out. And we're going to see a lot of that, or we'll know a little bit more about that at the end of the Flash movie.
We hope.
Yeah.
We hope. But, and here's the other thing. I think if they wanted to skew Batman younger, they could have just integrated, Matt Reeves' version into the DC universe. They could have done it. Now, we know Matt Reeves didn't want that. Right. He wanted his universe to be separate.
He wanted to do.
But if they were like, "Hey, we're skewing younger. We're making the entire Justice League younger. We're building a team with younger actors." I mean, you could have had Robert Pattinson be Batman, but who knows? I'm excited about this because I love the Chris. Actually, I went back and watched that Dark Knight Rises again last night, and those movies were just so good.
Oh yeah,
they were just so well done.
Well, to be honest with you, I watched Batman vs Superman again, a majority of it. It was on, and I couldn't get off of it. That was pretty damn good too. I mean,
it got panned in the.
It did, but I'm telling you,
critics.
I enjoyed it. I'm not a Snyder head. I'm not one of those toxic, crazy internet Snyder fans that just absolutely blast anybody that says something negative. But I really liked those movies, and I thought the casting and all of the casting for those characters were spot on. Great casting. Maybe Ezra Miller a little off, obviously, but the rest of it was great. I mean, so anyway, I'm looking forward to see what James Gunn does, and we're going to know a little bit here shortly, right?
And again, that movie is likely not going to come out until 2026. So we've got 3 years, you know, and then that's another concern is that Christian Bale's going to be 3 years older by the time that movie comes out, right? So anyway, the fact that this rumor hit the wire was just exciting to me, just because again how beloved Christian Bale's version of Batman was, and I mean I did it. Hopefully we'll find out something soon.
And what sparked this rumor to hit the wire is that it's well known that the end of the Flash movie was completely redone. Some of the end credit scenes were completely redone. A lot of characters that were in the movie were cut out of the end credit scenes and substituted with maybe a snapshot of moving forward with the Gunverse, and those characters will be featured in there. So we'll know a lot at the end of the Flash movie. At least we'll know some direction that he's going to go in, because I know he had a big hand in it. And again, let's talk about the Flash trailer that's coming out beginning of the Super Bowl. And again, James Gunn and several people that have seen this movie say it's definitely the best DC superhero and probably the greatest superhero movie ever made. People have actually, that's what I'm telling you, that's what people are saying about this Flash movie. They're saying it's definitely the best DC superhero movie and probably one of this, and James even said
you
this.
mean post Snyder?
He said
better than Christopher Nolan's movies?
Probably one of the best superhero movies ever made. That's what people are saying about it. So let's see how well those statements age after the movie is released.
Well, again, that movie was supposed to come out last summer.
Yeah.
Correct? And so it was delayed at least a year. Mm-hmm. And for lots of reasons. The primary reason was a lot of the trials and tribulations that Ezra Miller was going through and legal problems and everything else that he was dealing with.
He gets healthy and mentally stable.
Right.
Yeah.
But to your point, that gave him a lot of time to redo things. And you know, now that James Gunn has his hands on stuff, he's openly said, he said in his announcement video, the Flash movie is going to reset the DC universe.
Yes.
And Titanium, you and I have talked about that at length for the 2 years we've been doing this show, that if they wanted to reset the DC universe, Flash movie was a way to do it. Yeah. And James Gunn openly said that's what they're doing. They're using it as a version of Flashpoint to reset the universe.
You know, we don't know anything about Aquaman, whether Jason Momoa is going to stay as Aquaman. It's going to be a weird one. It's going to be definitely weird when that movie comes out. The fact that it's so far into... after this announcement has been made about his future at Chapter 1.
But they could do something similar to what they did with Ant-Man and the Wasp, right? Ant-Man and the Wasp came out after Endgame, but it took place after Infinity War, but it took place during the Infinity War...
kind of things that were happening.
Well, because the end of the movie was him going off into the quantum realm and being trapped when everybody got dusted.
Yeah, I like it.
So maybe they could do that say that the Aquaman 2 movie... occurs prior or to or during the Flash movie. So
yeah, and folks, always remember that no one is going to say anything about any of these actors and their future continuing with DC Universe because it will kill the movies, right? They're not going to say, "Oh, Ezra Miller's out. We're not going to work with him anymore." That'll kill the Flash movie.
That's why they haven't said anything about Shazam.
Nothing about
that
Shazam.
Movie's coming out in a month, and then if they said, well, this is the last time we're going to see this version of Shazam in the DC Universe, nobody would go see the movie. Yeah,
that's just the good business, is to keep that under wraps and not say anything about Jason Momoa and continue with the belief that he's going to stay as Aquaman, so go see the movie because he's going to be in the future. So it's very interesting. It's going to be a very fun year this year.
Well, but as you mentioned, there were a number of cameos in that movie, and again, based on the first teaser trailer we saw for that movie, we know Michael Keaton was in the movie.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that it's likely his role in the movie has been diminished dramatically. And
maybe not in the movie, but the end credit scene or the end of the movie that would probably allude to the fact that he's going to be in the future a part of
an alternate version of Batman. Yeah. And you also mentioned that potentially Gal Gadot and Ben Affleck were in post-credit scenes kind of alluding, and they were teasing future projects that were coming up, and those have been cut and completely been redone.
Yep. Yes.
So I guess what you're saying is, if we get an end credit scene with Christian Bale as Batman, we know that
a ton of answers will just be a ton of questions would just be answered.
And here's what, God, this is getting me excited for today now. So we're supposed to get the first Flash full trailer today.
Yeah, yes.
And again, we got a teaser already. So we kind of got a teaser for this movie already, which featured an alternate version of Flash, of Ezra Miller in the movie.
He plays several versions of the Flash. You can see that in some of the clips.
Right. And then we know that there was a version of Supergirl in the movie as well. And you mentioned that version of Supergirl was going to be featured in post-credit scenes, which now
it's been
cut. But here's the question, Titanium. Is it possible this rumor came out when it did because we may be seeing this in the trailer today?
Ooh, that'd be huge. Maybe. But again, there has been a handful of people that have seen the Flash movie. They haven't seen end credit scenes, and they were told that some of this might change. The ending might change.
But they said the movie was great.
They said the movie was great. Nothing but positive things from the people that have seen it.
Huh.
Now, they can't get too into it. Obviously, they're under lock and key as far as that's concerned, but it should be interesting.
All right.
I can't wait to see this trailer.
Yeah, and I think it's going to tell us a lot, right? We'll see how much of, we kind of got a little bit of a theme from the first teaser. So, I'll kind of liken it to the Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania trick. When we first got the first teaser, it was visually stunning, and it was really talking about the quantum realm and the world and everything else. And then the next trailer was a lot darker, really focused on Kang and we're like, holy crap.
Yeah.
And so maybe the first Flash teaser was really to kind of get us interested in the concept of the Flash movie, and now we may get a little bit more insight into the plot of the movie and what's going on.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see this now. Now I'm pretty excited for this.
Up.
So speaking of trailers for the Super Bowl, again, Titanium mentioned we do plan to see or expect to see a full trailer for the Flash movie during the Super Bowl. You mentioned something pretty early, like it was going to be right around the kickoff.
6:30, yeah, I would say first quarter, either before the Super Bowl even starts or the first quarter,
like right after the national anthem, or right at kickoff, or
something like that.
Right when the coverage starts.
Yeah.
That's what you heard.
Yeah,
but we are expecting another number of other trailers during the Super Bowl. Marvel obviously has played a part in the Super Bowl in years past. We know. As a matter of fact, I know for a fact they're going to be doing a Disney 100 commercial. So I don't know if you saw this. I got an email from Bob Iger like an hour ago and said, we're going to be celebrating this coming year. We're going to be celebrating the 100-year anniversary of the founding of the Disney Corporation. At 1923 was when the company was founded. And we're celebrating 100 years of the company.
Now, was this in the shareholders meeting that he just had?
No, this just came out today.
Oh, wow.
He said, we will be featuring a special commercial during the Super Bowl celebrating 100 years of making magic and creating, and so he released the commercial. So he released it to the members of D23. So I watched it, and it's basically a montage of everything that Disney does and celebrating the characters and creativity and all this other stuff. So we know we're getting that. I do believe we will get a Disney Plus promotion as well.
Yeah.
You mentioned that Disney Plus had recently lost a lot of subscribers. Well, they've been going through. They haven't had any new content come out recently.
Well, here's what's deceptive. If you read the trades, they lost 2.4 million subscribers in Q1, which is huge. But if you read a little deeper and you look into it a little bit, their earnings kind of were as expected. Wall Street's earnings for Disney was as expected. They weren't disappointed in that. They lost those subscribers basically in Asia and India because Hotstar or some other version of Disney Plus was shut down and turned off. So they lost those subscribers. Domestically, here in the United States, they gained almost 200,000 subscribers domestically, so in the positive. But overall, their net loss was 4.1 million subscribers across. So here in the United States, they gained a little bit, but overall, it has definitely started to stale and drop tremendously.
Well, I mean, but the content has gotten stale there, right?
Of
the
course,
only thing that's been released
content is king.
Since Andor came out, the only thing that's been released new on Disney Plus. I mean, they had. Black Panther: Wakanda Forever was released February 1st, to Disney Plus.
Yeah.
That was a big release for them. But The Mandalorian is coming March 1st. Mm-hmm. So they're going to get a lot of subscribers back when that series, either people that left or people that haven't joined, it's going to bring people back in when that gets released as well. But I do believe we're going to get a Disney Plus promotion kind of featuring Loki Season 2 and Secret Invasion and some other things that we have on the Marvel side.
Some Secret Invasion stuff would be great. Also, it would be great if they announced their plan to add a ad type of subscription where you see ads and then there's an ad-free subscription. I think
different tiers.
Different tiers of subscription. I think that would be a smart move with this type of audience for the Super Bowl to promote that and get that out there. But original content is king. We've always said that. You and I both agree on that. And they need to start creating some original content like Netflix has done and other streaming devices. And speaking of other streaming devices, we got some rumors about something that's coming to Amazon, correct?
Yeah, I guess the Spider-Man Noir. Well, we knew...
Who's Spider-Man Noir, Professor?
Well, if you recall, the... where we've seen Spider-Man Noir in popular media was in the Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse movie. It's the version of Spider-Man that's in like a black coat and a black hat.
The black and white version.
Yeah, and lives in a universe that's a black and white universe, very similar to Sin City and that type of thing. It was really modeled after kind of the Sin City version of the comic books, but. Sony had mentioned this, months ago that they were entering into an agreement with Amazon to develop Spider-Verse original content for Amazon Prime.
Silk has been announced. They're going to explore a Korean-based actress to play Silk, which would be huge.
Yep. And now we've heard that Spider-Man Noir is getting its own series, a live-action series on Amazon Prime. Yeah, and it'll be... Think of Spider-Man that's kind of like a detective, kind of version of Spider-Man. It would be really cool. But yeah, I don't know. We probably won't see anything during the Super Bowl for that. But again, there's a lot of rumors about what we're going to see and what we're not going to see during the Super Bowl today. I do believe we'll probably get either another trailer for Guardians 3. Yeah. I think we'll get that today.
With some extra scenes
that we haven't seen yet.
Maybe a Quantum trailer with some extra scenes.
Quantumania, they've been doing so much promotion for Quantumania. I don't know if they'll spend the money for it during the Super Bowl. We'll see. I mean, that movie's a week away, so I don't know how much more they're going to do. We might see another Shazam! Fury of the Gods trailer, or at least a replay of the one that we've already seen. The rumor out there is that we might get a first teaser trailer for the Marvels movie during the Super Bowl, which would be...
That's a long shot.
We know nothing about that movie.
Yeah, that's a long shot.
We don't know anything about the plot. We don't know anything. I mean, that is a long shot. But that movie's coming out this summer, so I mean, at least now, like, get it in people's minds.
Kevin Feige has come out and said that the Marvels is a cornerstone to the future of the Marvel universe. And I was like, really? All right. MCU. He's a big fan of the MCU. He's a big fan of it. And again... I'm not being a bigot. I'm not being racist. I'm not being anything. But let me tell you one thing. I'm a truist. I like the comic books. It's what I grew up on. It's these characters that we've come familiar with, and I've grown to know and love over decades. And to race swap or gender swap a A-list character like the Fantastic Four, I don't agree with it, and it's just my own personal opinion. To race swap a lot of these characters or gender swap. Here's a great example: Wonder Man. That he's a white guy, he's a white stuntman actor in L.A., and now they have a African American playing him. That's fine. That's a B-list, C-list character. I mean, I get that. Kang, I get that. I understand all those, and I'm fine with those. I'm actually prefer it, to get a little diversity. But diversity for diversity's sake, I'm rambling here, but diversity for diversity's sake, I don't agree with.
Well, I think what you're alluding to is the fact that they've chosen to feature less popular, less relevant characters that happen to be diverse for the sake of diversity.
Yes.
It's not that they're gender swapping or race swapping characters that are beloved to us. What they're doing is they're taking lower level C-list characters that happen to be female, like Ms. Marvel, for example, and saying, this is going to be a cornerstone of the future of the Marvel Universe. And I'm like, her comic books didn't really ever do that well. No. Wasn't one of the most popular characters in the comic books, and people really don't know this character very well, but you're choosing to feature this character simply for the fact that it's
Miss Marvel, 6 years old. I mean, they created her 6 or 10 years.
10 years ago. Yeah.
I mean, that's basically very new considering some of these.
They weren't developed back in the 50s and 60s like most of these characters. Yeah. So I think that's what we have an issue with. But look, I don't know if we're going to see anything with the Marvels. I do want to talk about.
Wait a minute. Since you said the Marvels, can I ask you something?
Yeah.
Have you seen Brie Larson's Instagram lately?
No. I know you're a big fan.
I'm not a big fan of her playing Miss Marvel, but she is such a smoke show.
Oh, she is.
Oh my! The bikini. And I sound like a dirty old man. Apologies, but you know something. I call it as I see it, and she is gorgeous.
I'm not a big Instagram person, so I don't know.
She is a
obviously, you're following Brie on Instagram. I need to probably jump on
It's not really following, Professor. It's not really. It's more of a stalking situation.
Stalking.
It's a stalking situation.
Well, she was featured in the most recent trailer for Fast X, or the new Fast and the Furious movie that's coming out this summer.
Jason Momoa's in that too.
Yeah, Jason Momoa as well, but she's in it. She's a bit of a loon. I know she rubs a lot of people the wrong way, but she's a little politically weird, strange.
She uses her platform to spew her political ideology, which is fine. That's up to her. I don't like it. I don't listen to it, but I sure like her Instagram post.
Yeah, she's definitely a smoke show for
yes,
sure. But I do want to get into Bob Iger's announcement. So Bob Iger did come out this week and had an investor call, talked to the Disney investors, and really talked about.
So it's people that invest and have shares, large chunks of
shareholders meeting.
Okay,
and he basically came out and here's my plan for reorganization, right? And he said that when Bob Chapek took over, one of his biggest mistakes was he separated the content creators from the content delivery people. So what he said was that the people in charge of creating the content did not own marketing, distribution, and publishing of that content. So the creative people were somewhat undermined by the content publishing people because they would put their 2 cents into, well, we have to do it this way, or we have to make it this because it won't be popular or won't be able to distribute.
This is what sells. This is how we get money.
What he said is that was a huge mistake because what we're now going to do is we're going to reorganize the company and have the content creators, the creative side, own distribution as well. And they're going to be responsible for the profitability and success of the content they create. So he's now segmented the company into 3 different segments. There's, we'll say, the creative media side, which is Marvel, Lucasfilm, Pixar, all the creatives and Disney animation, all that side is going to own creating movies and series and distributing those movies and series, and they're going to own it end to end. And so now, if anybody's going to interfere, it's the people that are creating it that are interfering. Right? And then he has another division that's ESPN and kind of the sports side of things, and then he has another division that's the parks. And the parks are kind of on their own. But he said, look, these people are responsible for it end to end. If their movie bombs or their series on Disney Plus bombs, they own it. Yeah. They're the ones responsible for it, so it's on them. But a number of other things you mentioned, you were kind of disappointed. We were hoping we were going to get some more information about timeline and series and release dates, and you mentioned that he had said, oh, here's a couple new sequels, and you said they sound like money grabs. Frozen 3 is coming out. Big surprise. Like they weren't going to do that, right?
Zootopia
Zootopia 2. Yeah.
Toy Story 400.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. Toy Story 4, I believe, ended on a perfect note. It was literally one of the best endings of a series, and to close that out, with the toys going to the little girl and being passed down, and just an absolute brilliant way to end that. So it will be very interesting, Toy Story 5, to see what they do, because, man, I just think they're taking their most popular brands, the things that were really, really popular, and creating these sequels to grab money, and I don't agree with it.
Yeah,
I mean,
but nothing major. We thought we were going to hear some stuff about Disney Plus release schedules for Marvel content,
Star Wars content, anything.
Nothing. So, but I do think Bob Iger being back in charge, and I do like this direction that he's taking. And again, the company thrived under his leadership, and really took. We've talked about, as much as we really enjoyed all of the content we got on Disney Plus during Bob Chapek's time frame. Some of it was lackluster. So the movies in Phase 4 absolutely lackluster. And I do believe when he says it was because people were influencing the content that was being created because they wanted to direct how things were being distributed, right? And I whatever. We'll see where it goes with this.
Yeah, I like it under him as well. I think a lot of his Florida turmoil at the park and a lot of what's happened there with the governor and things. I think,
but that was not under his watch.
It was not under his watch, and that's what I'm saying. I think he'll come in and kind of smooth that over and make things go a little bit easier down there. Even though now, Disney just stepped out of their lane. They really got into politics and started to voice their opinion about really had nothing to do with entertainment or that kind of movement. So I hope all that settles down. He's got an uphill climb for sure. Iger does. But if he can get it to half of what it was when he was, running it, I'm all in.
Right, and again, he's got 2 years, right?
And we heard that Chapek almost fired Kevin Feige.
Right.
He almost let him go. And Iger stepped in and was like, "Don't do that."
Right.
That's a huge mistake. And this was back when it was just starting. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
That guy would be. Anyway.
Well, a lot of cleanup to do there. Another piece of good news, I think. Patrick Stewart has been told to be on standby for Deadpool 3.
Yeah.
So this is another kind of callback to the Fox universe. Again, we don't know much about Deadpool 3 other than the fact that it's Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds coming together as Deadpool and Wolverine in the movie, and there's going to be some time travel concepts with the TVA and everything else.
Yeah,
right?
It's definitely going to be featuring the multiverse.
But
sure.
But we feel or we believe that a lot of the Fox universe characters from the original Fox X-Men universe are going to be in this movie or featured in this movie to some extent. Again, the comic book run where Deadpool kills the Marvel universe. Maybe this is Deadpool kills the Fox universe, right? But Patrick Stewart is now slated to be in that movie as a cameo, at least, as Professor X. So, look, this movie's gonna, for you and me, it's gonna be a home run.
Oh,
I mean, two of our favorite actors playing two of our favorite characters. I mean, it's going to be a home run.
Sure.
And we trust in Ryan Reynolds. We know he's going to get it right. He's going to do well. And again, this movie's been pushed already. Was supposed to be coming out at the end of 2024. It's not going to be coming out probably till early 2025 now. So we're excited for this, though.
Yeah.
We think this is going to be a good one.
This is going to be a home run. You're right, Professor.
Yeah. I saw this. This was interesting and disturbing at the same time. And I think, this is, again, without any official announcements out there, you get a lot of these rumors. Again, we've been dealing with Fantastic Four casting rumors for a long time now. Another one just came out here a day or two ago. Matt Shakman, the director of the Fantastic Four movies now, he directed WandaVision. Very successful series for Disney Plus. He was given the reins to the Fantastic Four movie. Was seen in Hollywood meeting with Mila Kunis.
Smoke show.
Yeah.
One of my favorite actresses.
So now there's all this rumor out there. It's like, wait a minute, what else is Matt Shakman working on? Nothing. He's not working on anything but the Fantastic Four movie. So why would he be meeting with Mila Kunis unless he was considering her for a role in the Fantastic Four movie?
Or they're good friends and they just met for coffee.
Yeah. And that's my point, is that we don't know what's behind this. But now there's all this internet rumor and fan casting out there of Mila Kunis playing
What are your
the
thoughts?
Invisible Woman.
You like it or not?
I love Mila Kunis. I think she's fantastic. I don't see her in that role, and some of the other names that have been linked to that role, I would personally feel would be better for that role. So she's not by any means on the top of my list. Of like, it wasn't when I heard this, I wasn't like, oh my god, she would be perfect.
Yeah,
I'd be like, well, I didn't see Jessica Alba as in that role either, but she did fine. I mean, I was very happy to have her in that.
Same.
So she could do it. Mila Kunis could pull it off. There's no question about that. But is that who I'm looking forward to seeing?
Right.
Again, from what we've been told, Titanium,
they're
going younger, and they're going to go diverse right across the cast. Again, there's been lots of...
That I disagree with, but just because they went diverse with the cast that didn't make sense in the last Fantastic Four movie, and that movie bombed. I think they're playing towards a small majority of people that are very outspoken about diversity, and they're eliminating their core audience, the people that are going to go see the movie 2 or 3 times, not just one time because I made my speech and I stood on my soapbox and now I'm going to go see the movie and then that's it. The core audience, real fans like us, we see it multiple times. So I think it would be a big mistake, but still, we'll see. I have to trust. They've hit some pretty good home runs.
I think this casting announcement, and we still haven't gotten one,
right.
But I think the casting announcement for Fantastic Four is probably the most talked about and most anticipated casting in the history of comic book media.
It dominates social media,
right?
I mean, absolutely.
So until we get one, we're going to continue to get these rumors, but we will get one day. But it will be incredibly it will be picked apart, it will be criticized, Absolutely. It will be celebrated, it'll be everything until we get into some of the X-Men characters like the new Wolverine and all this other, that those will also be very well scrutinized. But like, this casting announcement is huge, and again, the fact that we don't have one is still disturbing. Again, we mentioned this a few weeks ago.
The movie comes out in 2024?
Early 2024,
wow.
Right? Yeah, so it's February 2024, I believe. Yeah, so they got to start filming this movie.
Yeah.
No, not 2024. It's got to be 2025.
Got to be 2025.
Yes, 2025.
There's no way.
They got to start filming this movie soon, right? Yeah, no, not 2024 because we're getting the big gap between July of this year and then May when Captain America 4 comes out in 2024.
Yep.
And then I believe Fantastic Four has been pushed. Since Deadpool was moved into the February date of 2025, Fantastic Four is probably going to be a May date, 2025. Now, we don't have an official announcement about that, but we believe that it's going to happen because they pushed Deadpool to make room for Blade, and so we kind of know that that's already happened.
Yeah. Okay.
So, anyway, look, make an announcement so we can stop talking about it. Or talk about stuff that we want to talk about, right? So that's the other thing. All right, let's get into our topic of the week this week. Brought to us by our friends over at Studio GG Studios, home of the Man Band, Corner of the Cob. Thanks, Studio G, for everything you've done for our show. Please go visit their page. We always link it in our show notes and go check them out. We want to do a preview of the Quantumania movie. Look, we've gotten a number of trailers now, and I know you've tried to go dark, and you made a big mistake this last week, and then you shared that mistake with me, and I got a little upset at you, but we're not going to talk about that today. The Marvel has ramped up the promotion engine behind this movie since it is only a week out. We seem to be getting new featurettes and new trailers every day now of new things. And again, I don't think they're spoiling anything new, but just a couple of new scenes here and there, which are actually pretty exciting. I find them very exciting. I think the things that they don't want us to know, they're still hiding from us. Of course. Right? But we have a lot. We've been given a lot. So I want to do a couple of things. I want to talk about some of the characters that are going to be in this movie and what we expect from them in this movie. And then we'll kind of talk about what we can surmise from the trailers that we've seen so far in regards to the plot. I think I have a pretty good idea of what the plot of this movie is going to be.
I do too.
But I do also think there's a lot that we still don't know.
Agreed.
That's what's exciting, right? So let's talk about it. You mentioned to me a couple days ago, you're like, I really don't know Kang, not really familiar with Kang as a comic book villain or a comic book character. Maybe we should talk a little bit about who Kang is.
Kang. I know Kang. I know he's a comic book villain. I know a lot about him, but I don't know as much as I did about Thanos with Kang.
Oh, of course. Right. Well, Kang, what I'll say is, and strap on your seatbelts, folks, Kang is likely the most complex, has the most complex and most, I'll say, confusing history in the comic books of any villain ever. So this is one identity that has been portrayed as several characters throughout comic book history. And each one of these characters is kind of different, but ultimately they're kind of the same person, just in different forms. And they've taken on these different forms and identities throughout history to kind of meet their goals and objectives. This is one of the things, Marvel, the comic book company, used this character as kind of like this big bad that could really kind of plug into multiple situations at multiple times. And it literally is just an encyclopedia of history in the comic books with this particular villain, right? And so I don't want to get too deep into the woods with this because, number one, we don't know how relevant it is to this movie or the future of this character in the MCU, but we will touch on a little bit of some of the things that kind of have happened with this character. So Kang is a character. His real name is Nathaniel Richards. Was born in the 30th century, right? So 1,000 years from now, right? So was born in the 30th century in a world that was really very technologically advanced, and didn't have any war or famine or disease or anything. Just a really kind of generally good world. Incredibly intelligent young person, ended up stumbling upon some archived information from Dr. Doom. Yes, that Dr. Doom, the Dr. Doom from our world, who was an incredibly intelligent scientist. His data and information about his time in the world had been stored in a museum, and Nathaniel Richards got access to this museum and ended up becoming privy to a lot of his research and technology, and being the smart young person that he was, decided to leverage that technology and was able to build a time machine, effectively, build a time traveling system. And decided to go back in time and insert himself into a time thousands of years in our past as Rama Tut, right?
King Tut.
Well, yeah, he basically went back to ancient Egypt and used his knowledge and technology to conquer ancient Egypt and become the pharaoh of ancient Egypt and rule over that kingdom. Ended up then coming back into the future when things kind of didn't go very well for him there, and then ended up coming back into our present timeline because he felt that the Age of Heroes, which is the timeline we're in now in our universe, was one that needed to be dominated to successfully set up his future. So he had multiple battles as Kang against the Avengers. Number of different other identities he's had. The Scarlet Centurion, Iron Lad, who was a member of the Young Avengers, and that's just a whole story about, Kang traveled into the future when he was a teenager and tried to set himself up when he was a teenager to become the conqueror that he was destined to become a little bit earlier than he did. But he realized that he was a really bad person, so he went back in time as a teenager and became a member of the Young Avengers and helped establish that team. Just incredibly confusing. I don't think we're seeing that version or those versions. And one of the other things that may play a part in this movie is every time he traveled back in time, it created, unbeknownst to him, an alternate version of himself in another timeline. Mm-hmm. So every time he used his time chair, every time he traveled to different times along the timeline, it created an alternate version of himself in an alternate timeline. And we've heard this thing about the Council of Kangs, right? There's multiple versions of Kang out there. Yeah. Some of them good, some of them bad, some of them conquerors, some of whatever.
Right.
We heard this in the Loki season, right? Where the He Who Remains version of Kang, which from the comic books was a character called Immortus, who had established himself in limbo, which was kind of overlooking and overseeing outside of time.
The timeline, yeah.
But that version said, look, there was a war. All these different versions of myself realized we could travel across the timeline and choose to dominate or, conquer certain, different versions. And this was not good for the universe. And that version, the He Who Remains version, decided I need to do something to defeat all my other versions of myself. And that's where he aligned himself with Alioth, the cloud-based monster that could consume other timelines, and conquered and basically defeated all the other alternate versions and set the one timeline. That's what he did. And then we know that Sylvie kind of changed that by killing him.
Yeah.
And so now we have these alternate versions of Kang across these different timelines now are out there. And we believe one of those versions of Kang is who we're going to see in this movie.
Yeah.
The Conqueror version of Kang, right?
Who was trapped in the quantum realm.
So the question is, this is what we've seen from the trailers. Question is, who trapped him there and why? Right? Who put him in the quantum realm and trapped him there, and why did they do that? And so we'll kind of talk about what we think is happening there, but that we do know that one of those versions of Kang is in this movie. We believe that we might see that same version in the Kang Dynasty movie, or maybe a different version. We believe we might see a version of Kang in Secret Wars. So we don't know where Marvel's going with this, but we believe Kang is who they're setting up as, or at least the identity of Kang, maybe not the same Kang, but different Kangs, is going to be who the Avengers and everybody else are fighting against over the next...
Or teaming up with.
Potentially.
Yeah.
Over the next several movies,
yes.
Right? So we believe that. So that's kind of a brief history of Kang. Again, we can confuse everybody on so many levels because it's just so complex. When you start thinking about timelines and time travel and alternate universes,
multiple Kangs,
the multiverse in general, right? That's just confusing.
It is.
And I think Marvel has a big job ahead of them trying to keep it simple and understandable to the audience.
Yeah, so that people aren't walking out of there like, what just happened? What was that?
Who is this again?
Yeah, they have a big job. Yeah, and that's why this movie is so important.
Right, exactly. Well, absolutely. And I think this is really going to kind of set the table for what we're going to be seeing over the next couple of years. I did want to talk about M.O.D.O.K. So we talked about M.O.D.O.K. a couple of episodes ago. Was a character, George Tarleton, just an individual person that the company AIM, Advanced Idea Mechanics, in the comic books, took this person and experimented on him, and the experiments they did made his head grow to this and brain grow to this enormous size, and his body was really small, so they had to put him in this like mechanical chair just to keep him alive. But he was originally a mechanized organism designed only for computing. So it was supposed to be, we're going to increase your intelligence so that you can do all the math and calculus that we need to do all these scientific experiments we need to do. Well, once he became sentient, he realized, I'm more powerful than all of you little underlings that created me.
Right.
And he ended up killing off everybody who was in charge of AIM at the time and taking over AIM, and he became M.O.D.O.K, which is mechanized organism only designed for killing, because he was pretty good at it.
Yeah.
But that's the comic book history of this character. We believe in this movie, Darren Cross, who played Yellow Jacket in the first Ant-Man in the movie, found his way into the quantum realm somehow when he shrunk at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
And that shrinking that happened to him, most of his body, if not all of his body, was destroyed. Now his head was still remained, and Kang maybe have rescued him and saved him. So we believe that's Darren Cross playing M.O.D.O.K. in this version.
Yeah, the director has come out and already confirmed it. So,
So there you go.
Yeah.
All right. So we know M.O.D.O.K's in the movie. What M.O.D.O.K's tie to Kang is, we have no idea. What his tie to potentially AIM is, we have no idea. What his motivation is, we have no idea. So those are things that will be surprising.
We don't know the future of him.
Right. Will he be a character in the MCU going forward? We have no idea.
No,
none of that.
I don't see it, but we'll see.
All right, so let's talk about what we've seen in the trailers so far and what we can kind of take from those trailers in regards to the plot, right? We know early on in the movie it's likely we're on Earth. Cassie seems to be a little bit of a troubled teenager.
Sure.
Right? She's kind of getting in trouble. We know that her relationship with Scott is a little fractured. Like, he's off being famous and being the one, an Avenger who saved the world, and Cassie's a little jealous of that, and a little resentful of the fact that he's not spending a lot of time with her. We see a scene in the trailers where she's in prison and he has to get her out of prison. Yeah. But we also see a scene where we understand she's very smart and she's been experimenting using some of the technology she has access to, and creates this device that can communicate with the quantum realm.
Yes, a beacon to help people down there. I think she's a big helper, like environmentalist or a helper, but I think she's very smart, and I think she developed her own suit. We see a suit in there. I don't know if that was being developed in the quantum realm, but we see eventually she does get a suit.
Well, there was a scene that was released with Scott and Hope and Cassie in a car, and she told her dad that she had a suit, and he was surprised to hear that she had a suit.
You have a suit?
You have a suit, yeah. So we know that she's at least worked with PIM particles and PIM technology to some extent. But then we know the entire team gets sucked into the quantum realm. Yeah. We've seen that. Yeah. And they get split off. We believe Cassie and Scott are kind of trapped somewhere, and then Hope and Janet and Hank are somewhere else. We've seen this in the trailers. There is a society down there of beings and individuals living in the quantum realm that had been conquered by Kang. Right? Kang, the version that's in the quantum realm, has conquered the quantum realm. Basically, is a militant
little pocket of the quantum realm that he's in.
A militant leader, that has developed this army and used his technology to basically dominate the quantum realm. And then we believe, and we've seen this in some of the trailers, there's a group of individuals who are freedom fighters. Right. They are trying to
rebels
that are trying to overthrow Kang and get back the quantum realm. So we've seen a lot of that. So we believe that that's part of it, and we also believe that Janet knows these people or has had history with these people before because, she lived down there for 30 years, right? We also believe that she knows Kang.
Oh, yeah.
They have a history.
He can't be trusted, she says.
Right. They have a history. And again, some of the theory out there is that Hope and Kang knew each other, potentially had a relationship, potentially. But Kang was using Janet and her help to build something so that he could escape the quantum realm, and then she found out his motivations and found out he's really not a nice guy, and said, I cannot let this person leave. Right. I need to do something. So we believe she did something to trap him down there. So he was close to finding a way out, but she did something to keep him from leaving. Yeah. So that's something that we've surmised from the trailers.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's a pretty good guess. I mean, we're guessing, right? I think that's a pretty good guess, yeah. I don't know how involved she was or how in depth preventing him from leaving or helping him to leave. Well, I guess we'll find that out. But I think that is a pretty good guesstimate of what's going on.
Well, we know that he's built a device called a time chair because we've seen that in the trailers, and they've told us that that's what it is. And we know that it doesn't work.
Yeah, he's propositioned. The quote was, it's offline. He needs to get it back online. And he's propositioned Scott to help him and find something that will get it online. Well,
he's basically done it in a way that he kidnaps Cassie.
Yeah.
Something to that effect. We see a scene of her trapped behind some wall or something, and Kang's talking to Scott. And so he's kidnapped her. And he basically gives Scott, tries to make a deal with him. Says, I need your help, Ant-Man, I need your help. And I can give you what you need, which is more time. Talked about, the time he's lost with Cassie when she was younger and all this other stuff. But we believe that he kidnaps Cassie to get Scott to help him get what he needs to get his chair working again. So that's something we've surmised from these trailers, right? Is that for some reason, somebody with Scott's abilities or knowledge has the ability to get something that Kang can't get himself.
I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to finding out what that is.
Right. Those scenes where he shrinks down and goes down into some place where maybe Kang can't get to, and maybe it's because he can't shrink or he doesn't have access to PIM particles or PIM technology or whatever. But, we know Scott has to go down and get something, right? We believe that white orb that we've seen in the trailers is potentially what he needs to get, which powers the time chair, right? But then we also believe he's going to try to escape, and then Scott and the team realize they can't let him do that, and they have to fight against him. And we know the rebels are going to have an uprising, and they're going to be fighting Kang's forces and all kinds of other stuff. And
I would think he escapes. I don't know who dies, if anybody dies. Obviously, the Wasp and Ant-Man aren't going to die like I originally had thought. My money was on Janet and Hank, but now I'm skeptical about that. Because just some things that they've said off the record.
But it wouldn't surprise me if Kang escaped and they were still trapped in the quantum realm.
I think that's a great possibility. I also think somebody's going to die. I don't know. Maybe a B character. Who knows? But yeah, I think that's a great possibility that they're trapped in the quantum realm
at the end of this movie.
Yeah, and Kang escapes. That'll be interesting.
Well, again, the question is it this version of Kang that's going to be Kang Dynasty? Is it another version of Kang? We don't know anything, right? But that's exciting. We know that there's a character in the movie that's a freedom fighter, part of the rebels, with the name of Quays. That's all we know is Quays. Right. We've heard rumors and other things that potentially the character of Quasar may be coming into the MCU, and maybe this is who that character is. We'll find that out. Yeah. Right? We've heard there's other cameos and other appearances that we should be expecting. We don't know any of them, though.
Yeah. We know Bill Murray is in the film, but that's not really a cameo. But we don't know what role he plays or anything like that. That'll be interesting to find out.
Right.
And I'm looking forward. I hope they have some shocking cameos. Like, I want to go Thursday and be like, holy shit. Like, I didn't know he was in the movie or something like that.
I think in typical Marvel fashion, we just talked about this. I think we have a pretty good idea of what the movie's about.
Sure.
I think we have a pretty good idea of the plot and what's, kind of the beginning, middle, and end of this movie.
How they piece it together and put it together, we don't.
We don't. And I believe there's an enormous amount of stuff that they've kept from us purposely that will be surprising and shocking and just wonderful to see and like, oh my God. Whether it's cameos of other characters or other people that are trapped down there that we didn't know about or whatever. I think there will be a lot of that.
I hope so.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited for it. Oh, yeah.
It's your birthday, isn't it?
It is. It'll be on my birthday.
Awesome.
It'll be fun.
So, 32?
Yeah.
32,
Got
right?
it. Nailed it. Yeah. Nailed it.
All right, Professor. Great show. Thanks for all the info, insight on the Kang. Appreciate it. School's over. Let's ring the bell. All
right. Well, that's it for us this week. We'll be back next week for more Super Talk. To get in touch with us on social media, hit us up via email, supertalkpodcast@outlook.com or at supertalkpod on Twitter. Until then, stay super, everyone.
And we're out, sir. Awesome. Boy, for such a short agenda, we talked our shit out.
This goes to show you, like,